Tales from Ilgraya presents The Once and Future Crown, a short story by Kt3.
No waking up yet. Zaran Fachi, there is more fun to be had.
Chani, boer gnuciar priadal hues meze terantiang.
Misha looked at the small bundled child for a moment. The child was looking back and forth between Tony and the newcomer with open suspicion. The child could understand nothing of the conversation, save for the tone of the words.
Zaran Fachi schreit kan je prom.
There was affection in Misha's low rumble of a voice as she smiled. The child looked between all of the adults with confusion written plainly on their face. The person holding them gently patted their back and continued conversing in the funny language. Infineon observed the portal rather casually, motioning to it. Misha nodded, looking away from the child she had just affectionately nicknamed Little Star in Nalculian.
Moroini penas delir heze pribis tertol zemat kio.
The phoenix replied softly, stroking the matted hair which covered the back of the child's head. An unsettlingly familiar energy began to build in the air. A look of recognition dawned on the child's face and they began to whimper softly. The phoenix looked down at the child who was now shuddering in their arms. That tiny, dirt and blood-smudged face was watching transfixed as the woman began to twitch and contort. Those innocently green eyes went wide with fear as the woman's body doubled in size multiple times over. Ballooning with an otherworldly rapidity, Misha's fair guise began to slip as a scalding torrent of viscous fluid rolled off of her, melting the nearby snow. The child let out an anxious groan as they stared, slack-jawed at the scene before them. Being a nutritor, the child had seen something similar before with their lycanthrope birth parents. A terrified expression painted itself on their face and they sank as deep into the arms which were holding them as they possibly could. Infineon breathed out softly, cradling the child against their body.
Misha is a friend.
The phoenix whispered in Terran English next to the child's ear. Friend? The child looked up at the phoenix like they had 10 heads. In the child's experience, a shifting lichen who wasn't related to them was a danger, especially since they were a nutritor. It only took contact with a wound or a scratch which barely broke the skin to cause a nutritor to awaken their dormant lichen heritage. As such, the child was now fully trembling in Infineon's arms. Misha's skin began steaming as it stretched and ripped, revealing a ripple of metallic pinkish-white scales. The child covered their nose and let out a gagging cough. There was an awful stench on the air which seemed to be a mixture of ozone and charred flesh. The child's face etched in horrified fascination as the once humanoid face deformed, becoming bony and lizard-like. As far as the child knew, lycanthropes didn't come in a lizard variety. The hands grew long and bony as black claws burst forth from the nail beds. The child cringed, huddling back against Infineon. The world became awash with the ghastly symphony of cracking bones and ripping flesh which seemed to stretch on forever. Despite what must have been utter agony, Misha's face was etched into a mask of serenity which hid the suffering as she grew into a massive dragon. The child watched with a detached fascination, much like one might observe a train crash through a wooden buggy with. After several deep breaths, Misha turned from the trio and made her way over to the trees. The child couldn't help their fearful fascination as they watched how the dragon's throat started to glow a vibrant, nearly neon pink. Opening her mouth, the dragon unleashed a torrent of tiny, frothy bubbles upon the trees. The whitish-pink, bubbly slime slowly rolled down the empty branches, giving the temporary illusion of frosted, glittering foliage, before it began to drip and ooze to form a shining film over and across the arch, like gap between the trunks of the two trees. A pinkish-white swirl of shimmering, bubbly film whirled from the center of the archway until it expanded to fill the space entirely.
Come along.
The dragon inclined her head towards the newly activated portal as her large whip-like tail twitched. She was speaking in the Terran language known as English for the benefit of the child.
It won't stay open long.
Tony and Infineon rushed through the shimmering archway. The child looked around in fascination as they were carried through the shining, film-like surface of what was essentially a giant bubble. There was a static discharge of resistance as the nearly invisible surface of energy, which divided all the realms, deformed before recognizing its sentinel and letting the small group through. The child blinked their glowing eyes, positively mesmerized as the northern lights disappeared, leaving a glittering starfield in their wake. The shimmering carpet of stars was perhaps more enthralling than the aurora had been. There were shades of pinks, oranges, purples, and inky, nearly black blues, which formed distant clouds amongst the celestial objects beyond the sky.
Infineon. I am under orders to carry the little crown.
Misha once again spoke in Terran English as she settled her body low so the spot where her neck met her shoulders was reachable. Unwrapping the child from the cloak, Infinian tried to sit them astride Misha's neck. The child let out a panicked sound and flung their arms around the phoenix's neck.
Misha is a friend.
Tony affirmed softly, reaching up to stroke the child's arm. Wide, distrustful eyes looked at the quasi-familiar stranger. The child looked at the dragon and nearly choked with panic before looking back at the cloaked woman to shake their little head as they let out a whimper of protest. Several minutes passed like this before Misha assisted. Shifting her long whip-like tail, she wrapped the appendage around the trio and lifted the tip high above the group to playfully dangle it near the child. The wiggling worm-like lure at the end of the tail illuminated softly, drawing the child's attention. Their fear eased, first into confusion, then fascination as they watched the iridescent glow shift from white to pink. They released their grip on Infinian and reached for the lure, much like a kitten batting at string. Misha let out a low, rumbling chuckle, allowing the child to catch the lure. With the child distracted, the phoenix gently moved to place them astride the dragon. The child instantly released the shiny, worm-like lure. Anxious eyes darted around as the lure left their view. The realization that they were sitting on the dragon registered as they nervously looked down. After a few seconds, tiny, trembling hands found purchase on the dragon's neck spikes. Tucking in her wings, Misha used them to support the child, like the back of a chair. Once the child was settled, the phoenix wrapped the cloak around their tiny form, allowing the excess to drape down both sides of the dragon's neck. Turning their back to the dragon, Infinian's movements became a gently flowing dance as they divulged themselves of unnecessary garments. The air was caressed with the soft whisper of fabric as the garments were gently folded and handed over to Tony. A richly sweet, earthy scent filled the air with the aroma of autumn's final bloom as Infinian's body began to ripple and shift its form. The tall humanoid stretched, its skin undulated and deformed before it suddenly ripped open, revealing wet brown feathers. Standing just a little over half Misha's height, the phoenix had a toothy snout instead of the beak one might typically associate with a bird. The child's concerned look became one of fascination as they watched the phoenix preen the gunk from their feathers. The creature's body plumage was a mixture of reds and browns, which displayed a faint striped pattern. The clawed arms had long feathers with bands of red and copper to match the crest of feathers on their head.
We will make the best time if your witch rides you. We will already be attracting attention by using this portal. Best not to have any stragglers.
The dragon said, looking from the phoenix to Tony, who was stuffing the folded clothing into a leather bag. Without a word, the phoenix moved over to present their back to their mate. Grabbing a fistful of feathers, Tony swung astride the horse-sized creature's back.
Hold tight, Ziranfachi.
The dragon rumbled softly as she rose from the ground. The dragon's first few strides saw the wide-eyed child clinging to the neck spikes for dear life. It was only after they had been in motion for quite some time that the tiny youngling began to relax their grip and lean back against the wings, using them for support. After growing comfortable astride the massive beast, their gaze drifted. Up above, the sky glittered with a rich, inky blanket of stars. The surface was covered in a pattern, the fabric of which seemed to have a soft, loamy, cloud-like structure snaking across it. It was mesmerizing to behold, with edges that faintly glowed a mixture of lilac, white, pink, and coral hues. The child had never seen a night sky such as this. It was breathtaking in its haunting splendor. The dragon lifted her head. Her throat glowed bright pink before her head pitched back and her shining lips parted, revealing a menacing flash of glittering razor blade-like teeth. A cluster of pinkish-white bubbles rose into the sky, seeming to drift on a non-existent wind. Misha set to following the nearly imperceptible path, which was marked by the soft, glowing orbs of her bubbles. Each time the small group moved past a bubble, it would burst, releasing a small flash similar to a firework before fading and leaving the area behind obscured by darkness. Given the lack of a visible moon, the darkened land around the group seemed flat, as far as the child could see. Still, they felt the uneasy sensation of being watched. This unease caused the child to look around anxiously. The dragon turned to the right, and in the distance, strange shapes appeared at odd angles all around. Some even seemed to be floating in the sky. As the group approached, the path ahead seemed to narrow, funneling them in one direction as the distant shapes began to clearly take form. The child couldn't help their wide-eyed stare. There were floating doors and random, oddly angled staircases which seemed to wrap around the group. The sky and horizon were now mostly obscured by swirling tunnels of doors and stairs which formed snaking hallways that branched off from the path the group was on. These fantastical hallways seemed to the child to open quickly, forming and disappearing faster than the blink of an eye in some cases. The sound of doors opening and closing made the child's eyes flit back and forth, while their neck hair stood on end. Every door had a different shape, color, frame, and knob. It was like a kaleidoscope. Some would only appear for a split second. Most were closed, but the child couldn't shake the uneasy feeling of being watched. Given that the child was riding on a literal dragon, they shouldn't be this afraid, yet they were nearly ready to scream. Up ahead in the distance, a staircase spiraled straight up and was topped with a faintly gleaming door. As the group approached, it became clear that the staircase was overgrown with long trailing mosses and ivy. Whatever materials the steps were comprised of was not visible. The stairs were not traversable. Chills raced up and down the child's spine as their eyes drifted up to the shining door at the top of the spiral staircase. The door looked like it was a solid chunk of stone. The child's head spun and the hairs on their arms and neck raised. There was something unsettlingly familiar about the rainbow sheen of that door. They looked down at the dragon. If she was bothered by the creepy door, it didn't show. The group made its way past the staircase, pivoting around it before eventually leaving it far behind. Leaving the staircase did little to ease the child's discomfort.
Tales from Ilgraya, The Once and Future Crown is a short story by Pt3. Special thanks to Sparkle Writers for beta reading this short. Want more? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Visit www.talesfromilg.com for all things Ilgraya. Part 4, coming soon.